Hello there, fellow Netzarim. My name is Steve Engel. I am the brother of Sherry Stottle, and this is my second attempt at this. Now, I should qualify this by saying I've never made a video before. I feel very strange staring at a smartphone and talking. This is very low budget. Sherry helped me make this backdrop out of a couple of curtains, and I've got a floor lamp here using for my lighting, which is blinding me. But I'm going to do the best I can do because I don't think it's about having something that's flashy and special effects and all that kind of stuff. Right now, I don't even have the ability to screen share and put documents up, which I hope to be able to figure out how to do that. I've been trying to do this for a long time, a couple of months. I've known for at least a year and a half that I needed to do this, and there's been so many obstacles in my path. But Jeremiah talks about the watchman, and when one has information about something that's going to occur, some evil is going to happen, and doesn't share that information, do whatever they can do to get it out there, then the evil is going to come anyway. He uses the sword. He says when the sword's coming, the watchman sees the sword coming, and he says nothing. The person will die in their sins, but the blood will be on the watchman. Well, I don't want the blood to be on me, so that's my motivation for doing this. I have been through quite a bit in the last several years, and especially in the last year and a half or so. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to be 61 in just about a month now, February 8th. I've been a carpenter professionally since I was 14, 1974. Boy, that's a long time ago. My father opened a carpentry construction business, and I eventually worked up to, in 1985, I was a partner. In 1990, we started general contracting, and I pretty much ran the business. He ran the crews once we got to the general contracting part. And I'm a horticulturist, so I can pretty much do anything inside or outside of your home. And now it's become a hobby that I study law more than for the reason that it started in the first place. I did not enjoy studying law, but I've been like the kid that got beat up every day to and from his way to school that had to take karate lessons. I ran into a problem, and it was 1996, and in my naivety, I still believed that everything was about right and wrong, truth, justice, and the American way, and followed the advice of an attorney, and it completely changed and destroyed my life. So in 2001, I ended up going to jail, and I ended up spending well, actually, it was right at the end of 2001, I believe, 2002 to 2007. 5 years I was locked up. The first 6 months I was in county jail on this. Had I known what I know now, I would have just went in there and said, yeah, well, this is exactly what happened. And I wouldn't have followed the lawyer's advice. I would have taken full and total responsibility for my part of it because I wasn't totally innocent. Didn't do what they said, and it was blown out of proportion. And when people ask me what it was for, I tell them it was drunken stupidity. I come from a background, I grew up in the 70s. It was, the rock and roll and the drugs and the other thing we always talk about. That was the whole lifestyle. And I was the epitome of that type of lifestyle. Played guitar in a rock and roll band pretty much most of my young life. I went to college for electronics engineering, got about a little over halfway through it, and changed my major to beer and girls, and that was kind of the end of that. Then I came back and went to work with Dad, and we worked together pretty solid until 1996. And after I got in trouble in 96, it was so disruptive to my life that I just completely self-destructed. By 2001, I landed myself in trouble I couldn't get out of. Well, after that first go-round, then it keeps coming back to haunt me. And I have been to prison 5 times now. If you look me up and look at my record and all of that, if anybody wants to ask me anything, look me up, call me, get a hold of me through my sister. You've all got her email. And I'd be more than happy to share that, but I'm not going to put it out just in a video. Everything's too much. Don't want to get that involved. I'm just mostly wanting to introduce myself and introduce my channel. I've named my channel Come Out of Her My Sheeple because we're told in the book of Revelation, chapter 17 and 18, I believe it's in 18, where we're warned to come out of Babylon, lest we share in the plagues of Babylon. And we see in Revelation chapter 13, that there's 2 beasts. There's a beast that rises out of the sea, and there's a beast that rises out of the earth. Well, the beast that rises out of the sea is talking, in my opinion, and I've done quite a bit of study on eschatology, it's talking about an end-time empire. And if we read the book of Daniel and the other prophecies, we can pretty much see that this is a continuation of the Roman Empire. Go back and look at the statue in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, where the statue with the head of gold and the belly, or the chest and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of brass, and the legs of iron, with feet partly iron and partly clay. And then the breakdown saying that's the 4 empires that are going to be in existence till the end of the age. Not the end of the world. The world doesn't end, by the way. Anyway, the head of gold represented the kingdom of King Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire at that time. And it was probably the most glorious. And each of the metals, as it goes down, gets stronger, but they're not as valuable, not as precious. And I think there's some meaning in that, but you'll have to do your due diligence on that if you're interested in it. The chest and the arms of silver represents the Medo-Persian Empire that overthrew the Babylonian Empire. Then the belly and thighs of bronze represents the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great. And the legs of iron, with the feet partly iron and partly clay, represents the Roman Empire. Now, the Roman Empire was divided into an Eastern Empire and a Western Empire. And we see, when we read, and I'm just going off of memory and trying to put this out there real quick so we can get to the meat of this. When we read in Daniel in chapter 7 and 9, I believe it is, we look at the other visions and explanations. See, because in Isaiah 28, 9 and 10, we're given a formula. He says, to whom will he teach knowledge? Meaning, Isaiah is saying this. He's saying, to whom will Yahuwah give knowledge? And then he asks a rhetorical question. Those just drawn from the breast, those just weaned from milk. He's talking about spiritual infants there. And he's saying that the knowledge is going to come to the spiritually mature, because it must be precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. So if one truly desires an understanding, then one needs to do the due diligence and to search out that understanding, prayerfully asking for the wisdom, following the formula that we're given in the book of James, where it says that if anyone lacks knowledge, let him ask, and the Holy Spirit will give them the knowledge, but you got to believe you're going to get it. And you don't get the answers, or I didn't get the answers immediately on a lot of things, but you had to keep plugging along, keep pushing, keep reading. And I believe I have some answers now. I'm far from knowing it all. I don't know. And in fact, the more that I know, the more I understand I don't know. But what I do know is I've got, sitting here beside me, I've got a King James Bible. And I've got a copy of the Sefer. I really love this Bible, by the way. Dr. Pigeon and his crew did a really great job with it. This is a book of the law. I've also got some other books. I could never afford these books, but I've made friends with the clerk at the local law library. This is a law book also. This is called Trial Handbook for Illinois Lawyers, Criminal 9th edition. And it is, well, it's not West, it's Thomas Reuters Publishing. But I've got a couple more by West over here. The Illinois Rules of in Procedure and the Federal Civil Judicial Procedure and Rules. Those are both law books. And I find that an understanding of the secular laws has helped me to understand more the biblical laws and the whole principle of law and the necessity of rule. And that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about a lot on this channel, is different things that I've learned and the practical application. I'm not really going to pull too many punches. I'm not going to worry too much about, you know, how my setup is, how professional it might be, that, you know, I'm just using a smartphone to record and makeshift lighting and backdrops and all of that. That's unimportant to me. I would like to be able to pull things off the computer, and I'll study to that point about it. But to tell you the truth, I keep a pretty well overwhelmed lifestyle. Sherry, as many of you probably know, is not always in the best health, and I take care of her. And I'm not in the best health either. I'm having a problem with my legs, and we could both use your prayers right now. And I'm going to see a vascular surgeon and see what's going on, but I'm having a recurring bout of cellulitis, especially my right leg. Now my left leg's starting to flare up, and since June 8th of 2019, I've had 2 or 3 flare-ups, and my legs have been pretty useless, so I'm going through a little bit of health problems. So it seems to be Sherry's taking care of me, or I'm taking care of Sherry, but I can just thank Yah that we've got each other. So anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, and that I wanted to go ahead and do it tonight, I made a video earlier tonight. That video went 1 hour and 8 minutes or 1 hour and 16 minutes. I'm not sure. I was looking at the timer on the phone, and then it all of a sudden just quit and it disappeared. And it was like a demonic thing or something, like something just interfered with that and didn't want that out there. But possibly that's because building up to this and being able to throw together this little makeshift setup that we've got here, and figuring out how to get the video onto the smartphone and how to publish it and all that. I still don't know how to publish it, but it looks like that's just a couple buttons away. But that took up till 11 o'clock tonight or so, and then I did the video, lost it, got a little disgusted and wasn't going to make it, but I decided no, this is just the enemy throwing another obstacle in my way, and I've got to get started at some time. Confucius said, I believe it was Confucius, maybe it's just an old Chinese proverb, but a journey of 10,000 miles begins with but a single step. In fact, I think that wasn't Confucius. Like I said, I don't know everything, but I do try to do my due diligence. I have tried to read things for myself. Now, when I spent that 6 months in the county jail, followed by 4.5 years in prison for a total of being gone 5 years, the first 6 months I had nothing but a little bitty pocket NIV New Testament. Yeah, the good old New International Perversion, probably one of the worst Bibles you can get. But even with that, I read it over and over and over. Now, I was in a situation in a jail that was just about to be closed down within a couple of years. It has since been closed down. And there were 7 cells in this cell block that were made for 2 people each. They had 3 people in them. They kept it at 60 degrees, and they used the living conditions in Winnebago County as a tool for the prosecution. They try to make you so happy that you're just thrilled to get on the prison bus. In fact, the first time I got on that bus and rode into Stateville Correctional Facility, actually it was Joliet Correctional Facility at that time before they closed that up. As we drove into the facility, I didn't see a frown on anybody's face. There were people that were going away for 30 years or longer, and everybody was happy to be in prison. It was that bad. But I spent this time reading that over and over and over, that New Testament. I had gotten it new, and there was nothing really available in the jail at that time. I don't even remember how I got a hold of one because you couldn't get Bibles back then in the county jail. And now Winnebago County has now taken Bibles away to where they're giving these watered down New International Readers versions that are just, I consider, almost worthless. They're so horrible. I've tried to read one and you can't do it. You just can't get nothing out of it. But anyway, I read this little book until the pages were falling out. And at the end of 5 months, I was in there 6 months. At the end of 5 months, I said a prayer. And I don't remember the entirety of the prayer, but I remember one part of it at the end that I told Yah that after reading for all this time, everything that I had been taught, I'm not finding in the New Testament. Now, I had been in the Church of Christ since I think I was 22 years old. It was 1981 when my grandfather died. I started going to church. I was living with a woman. We got married, and we stayed in that church for 13 years. Then I got successful as a general contractor, fell out of it, got into cocaine, got into some other bad habits, and had a falling out with my dad, got in trouble with the law, and the rest is history. About 1998, 1999, I'm guessing, I got a DUI, and I've still not recovered my license from then because every time I've gotten close to getting my license, something else would come up, and I'm barred from it. Illinois is horrible on getting your license, and had I done it in the 90s, I would have it back, but I didn't. I procrastinated on it because of all the other things I had going. But that's neither here nor there. So at the end of the 5 months, when I said this little prayer, told Father that, if he would show me the truth from his word, I'd be willing to entertain that I might have been wrong. And when I look back and think of the way that I prayed that prayer, it was so arrogant at the time. I guess my cognitive dissonance or normalcy bias or whatever it was just so strong that I couldn't just accept what was as obvious as the nose on my face, that the things that I had been taught in the Church of Christ, were not what was actually taught in the Bible. I remember when we first started, my new wife and I, we went through a 5-pamphlet series that took us, we did one every week or every 2 weeks. They were just maybe 20 pages, and it taught dispensationalism. So I was immediately put right into the middle of the doctrine of dispensationalism, which I now know to be completely and totally fallacious. It's not at all the way it is. And there's a lot of things related with that we won't go into right now, but I just wanted to get on here and let you know a little bit about me. I've had some bad experiences with one other group in particular, so-called sacred names. I've got a problem with all these things that we call ourselves nowadays. I go by Stephen the Hebrew at gmail.com, spelled Stephen, all one word, all lowercase, and that's my email if anybody wants to contact me. But I do that because I don't really like saying I'm a part of the sacred name movement. There's been certain things attached to that moniker that I really don't care for, and there's a couple other names out there, but I'm really liking the Netzarim. Now, I was just introduced to that concept by my sister some months back. I don't remember when. It really doesn't matter. But I think that that's probably a better way to refer to myself now. Son of the Most High, follower of the way, Netzarim. I'm more comfortable with those terms than I am with a sacred namer or Messianic Hebrew or those types of terms. So that's kind of the way I'm leaning on that doctrine or that name. But I was very standoffish. I've been coming and watching Parable of the Vineyard now, and watching Jessica and Dr. Pigeon, and hanging around that crowd, mostly watching with Sherry on her computer. But Friday night, something just kind of hit a chord with me. I don't even know what it was. And for some reason, I opened up. Like I said, I had a bad experience with this one group, and mostly it was just two individuals in that group. But it reinforced what I've felt since like forever. When I came to the Church of Christ in '81, I was already battling with the thought that I was just so far gone that I could never be forgiven. And Hasatan has not lost an opportunity, not missed one opportunity to reinforce that self-doubt and that negative self-esteem. You know, it's come up so many times, to the point that up until a couple months ago, I was living away from here up in South Beloit, and we're in northern Illinois, about 7 miles from the Wisconsin line. South Beloit is right on the Wisconsin line, and Beloit is in Wisconsin. I lived about maybe 200 yards from Wisconsin, something like that, and spent a lot of time in Wisconsin. And that was quite an experience. I'll talk about that sometime if anybody actually comes back and checks out this channel. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm hoping that I have something to offer you. I'm hoping that I can show you some things that you might not have considered before. And, you know, each of us has our own calling. And I've known for a long time that I was supposed to do something. Yah has given me too much. He's revealed too much to me for me to just hide it under a rock and keep it all to myself. It's like the parable of the talents. So when Yahusha comes back here, do I want to say that here's your talent, I've held on to it for you and kept it safe? No, he wants me to invest that. He wants it to bring some interest anyway, So, and I don't want to be the watchman that sees the sword coming and doesn't say anything, and that the blood of somebody that otherwise might not have had to perish is on my head because I didn't say anything. And it scares me that, that I've let opportunities pass that where I should have opened my mouth and I haven't. But I won't know until I'm standing before him in that day. I won't know really for sure. I can no more judge myself than I can judge any of you, because that's just above my pay grade. It's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to use discernment. I know that, but discerning and judging are two different things. And I pray constantly that he will give me the discernment and help me to see things that are right and wrong, and make the determinations and take the right paths. And I mess up constantly. I make mistakes constantly. Right now, I've been battling with the Machesney Park Police Department. Winnebago County has a sheriff's department, and they have several divisions. The Winnebago County Machesney Park Division and the South Beloit Division of the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department have been giving me trouble. A couple years ago, I was involved in a situation out here where one of my elderly friends had died, and his daughter was in Brandon, Mississippi, I believe it is, and I helped her with the legal problems she had as the executrix of the estate. And I should explain that Sherry and I live in a community. It's a retirement community. It's basically glorified double-wide trailers, but they're called modular homes because of the way that they're mounted to a slab and the siding goes all the way to the ground. But it's a glorified trailer park. And like I say, pretty much everybody out here are retired. So all my friends, my best friend next door is 77 years old. Another good friend of mine across the street's 92 years old. So we have a lot to do with these old people out here. And Jim, the one in the corner that died, he was 86 years old, and we had a big hassle with his estate. During that time, I had been studying law for quite some time then. I actually started dabbling with it in 2001. Then in 2010, I was arrested and I spent 21 and a half months in the county jail fighting a case, and I was locked up with a licensed and practicing paralegal, and he taught me the basics, and we had quite a little time of it. This guy was ex-special forces. He was a sniper in Vietnam. Came back, got in some bad trouble, and spent 26 years in the Wisconsin system where he got 3 degrees, and he was very good in the law. However, he never made the connection that I've just made in the last couple of years about how convoluted, upside down, and backwards everything is, and how much of a lie it is. The lie goes so deep, the rabbit hole goes so deep, that most of the lawyers that are out there do not understand how the system really works. But it's a system of exploitation where we're being sold into slavery to finance a debt system that where there's not any real money anyway. It's insane. It's insane. It's satanic. It is the beast system right before us right now. We are living right in the middle of the beast system. Most people don't realize. They're so worried about what's happening right now and martial law. But let me tell you a little bit about history. I'm not going to get heavy into anything. I'm just trying to give a little overview. In 1861, when the War of Northern Aggression took place, and that's what I've come to call it, where I used to call it the Civil War. But I've learned some things about Mr. Lincoln that would probably a lot of people wouldn't believe, but it's all there in the history books if anybody wants to look at it. Anyway, when the war took place, it had nothing to do with slavery. It had to do with taxes. And the South was tired of paying taxes. They seceded because of the tax situation, and just a few days, I believe it was 10 days before, Lincoln had told Jefferson Davis that he didn't care if they had slaves or not. He just wanted his tax money. And of course, I'm loosely paraphrasing the communication to Jefferson Davis by President Lincoln. But Jefferson Davis said, well, just don't surround Fort Sumter and we'll be okay. And so what does Lincoln do? He starts the war by surrounding Fort Sumter. It was insane. But what happened at that time is Congress, the Southern senators and congressmen walked out. When they did that, they didn't follow parliamentary procedure, which says when you adjourn, you have to set a date to reconvene, and then you have to have a certain number of senators and congressmen to reconvene. It's called a quorum. And there was not a quorum available because the ones from the South had walked out. Well, Lincoln took 75,000 Union troops and marched them back in at gunpoint. Shortly thereafter, he wrote the first executive order to have a document written called the Lieber Code. And the Lieber Code sets the standards for military behavior in a time of occupation, and it talks mostly about martial law. Well, we have actually been under martial law, and Article 1 in the Lieber Code says when you're under martial law that it does not have to even be declared to the people who are occupied that they're under martial law, and the only way that it ends is by a declaration from the chief executive or by a treaty of peace. Well, there was no peace treaty between the North and the South, and there's never been a general proclamation by any president. And if you'll notice, since the time of Lincoln and the war between the states, if you'll notice, there's always been some kind of conflict going on. And now we have the war on terror, the war on drugs. Another thing people don't know is every year the president has to sign an extension of the Emergency War Powers Act. And it goes deeper than that. But there again, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to go into it. But we've been in a state of martial law since 1861, and it was completely official by 1863. I'm leaving out a lot of details here. First of all, I'd have to refer to some history books to give you all of them, because I don't have this all in my brain. It's just, I've got the overview of it, and I'm trying to share that with you, because I want you to see that things are upside down and backwards. Excuse me. So, my quest for the past 4 or 5 years has been to find a way to come out of the system. I realized at some point, it was revealed to me that this was a totally evil system. This was a beast system, and I needed to come out of it. There's a process for coming out of it, and I understand the process, and I think I could probably muddle my way through it. It's called a secured party creditor, and it has to do with filings a document called the UCC-1 statement, financing statement, and UCC stands for Uniform Commercial Code. Well, the Uniform Commercial Code is governing in our courts today. Our courts have become courts of maritime admiralty jurisdiction, where we were set up as a perpetual republic by the Articles of Confederation and guaranteed by the third article of the Constitution, common law courts. But however, the Article 3 of the Constitution does allow for it's called natures, 4 different jurisdictions. And that is the common law, equity, maritime, and admiralty. But in 1938, well, let's see. Maybe I should tell you about what happened in 1933 first. Roosevelt, in 1933, declared the Emergency Banking Act, declared national emergency, and it was March 9th of 1933. Then on June 5th of 1933, Senate House Joint Resolution 192 was put in place. All of the gold and silver was taken from the people, and that set something in place that this is not the right time to get into it. It's a very convoluted rabbit hole. But in 1938, there was a Supreme Court case called Tompkins versus Erie Railroad. I might have that backwards. Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. Not sure right now. I'm covering a lot and covering it kind of quick here. So I will get into some of this stuff slowly and in detail if it's something that people think that they can use. Like I said, this is just pretty much an introductory to my channel. And I don't know it all. And I'm very, very confused on a lot of it still. I know that the trust law, figuring out trust law over these past few years has really been something. But anyway, this Tompkins-Erie case combined equity and common law. And in the time since then, since 1938, they've kind of rolled them all together. So there used to be a distinction that equity was way over here and law was way over here, and they weren't supposed to mix. Equity has to do with contracts and specific performance and settling those types of disputes, where law has to do with settling disputes of an injury to a person or their property. But by the lawyers combining all of this, getting together and writing all these laws and making it so complicated, they created a system to where they're king, they rule. What I'm going through right now, I've been going through since February 9th of 2019, where a police officer came into my home, woke me up, and when I got out of bed and said, let's go to the living room, moved a little bit, he says, well, now you're resisting arrest also. So I got it for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest because I was sleeping in my bed. And I could say a lot about that story, but I knew this guy from when I'd spent all that time in county jail and thought he was my friend. This was purely a retaliatory arrest. In June 4th of 2019, I was walking my dog right up on the other side of the Wisconsin line. I was 50 to 100 yards in Wisconsin, and a person came up in the field in their pickup truck and tried to run us over. Well, I took out my cell phone and called for the Rock County, Wisconsin police, the 911. Somehow, the Illinois Winnebago County Police responded to it. And at that time, this guy stopped and opened his door and reached out and smacked me. And I went in his window and hit him 4 or 5 times in the face. And it was trying to hold my little dog's leash in one hand and get through this with the other. And I was pretty pumped up at the time. And I was upset with the police and basically told them, get out of here. This isn't even your jurisdiction. Get me Rock County. Because I was really going to press charges on this situation. But at the end of the day, I went to jail for obstruction. And so I've had these 2 cases going. Well, they're both retaliatory because in 2010, the reason I was in jail is I was accused of an armed robbery. I was in my garage working. It was during a snowstorm, and I was running a landscaping business out here where we live. There's about 300 homes. I had 38 clients out here. I don't remember how many I removed snow for, but I had 3 snow blowers and 2 of them weren't running. So I was out in the garage fixing snow blowers. Meanwhile, my mother and my father, who were both terminally ill, were in the house. Mom had COPD. And I was in every 10 minutes checking on her. Well, apparently that night there was a robbery at a gas station about 1/8 of a mile away. And they decided that I did it. And I found out later it was on a Wednesday night. It took me a while to get the information out of them because you have to be so careful when you're talking to these people. But I ended up fighting that for all that time. And I forgot the reason that I was even bringing this up now. I guess my age is catching up with me. But I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible with all of you guys because my sister and I really enjoy the group from Parable of the Vineyard, and we feel like finally we might have found a home where I didn't know if I was ever going to again. I thought maybe I was just going to be on my own and have to worship the best I could on my own. I've not been in a situation since I learned the truth while I was in jail and then had such a self-esteem problem that when I did get out and get into a situation where I could participate in the feasts, I didn't because I just didn't feel like I fit anywhere. So I've not really had a lot of experience. I went to one Passover celebration just about 20-30 miles from here in Janesville, Wisconsin, through the Living Church of God, one of the Herbert Armstrong splinter groups from the Worldwide Church of God, which broke up in 1986. I was a member of that for quite a few years, but never a close member because the closest congregation is about 60 miles from here. Anyway, now, with the way things have been accelerating lately and what's going on, I felt really compelled to finally get my channel up and running. I believe that I found a remedy and found a way out of the system. I'm not going to say what that is tonight because in my quest to learn the law, I've caused myself a lot of problems, including this time that I was in Wisconsin. I was basically homeless because I misapplied some laws and got kicked out of this subdivision where we're at. They were hassling Sherry over my truck being parked in the driveway, and I called and said some things that I probably shouldn't have said to the manager. And at the end of the day, the easiest thing was for me to leave or Sherry to get kicked out also. So I did. And a misapplication of the law and having just a little bit of understanding can be very, very dangerous. But having an understanding and applying it to the universal law, the natural law, the law of Yahuwah, that can really be enlightening. And I think that from that perspective, that I might have something to offer. And I really do think that we have to come out of Babylon. I've come out of Babylon pretty much all the way. I still got a couple of things I need to take care of, but I haven't asked Satan's permission by doing a UCC1 filing and coming out that way, where you never really get clear there that way anyway, because you have to file these documents every 5 years. And it's convoluted. Like I said, the rabbit hole is deep and it's convoluted, and it's just everything that I had ever learned about law, about the Bible, about life in general is upside down, backwards, inside out, and tied in knots. And I've been working for about 17 years now trying to figure it out, and seriously for 9 years. I've been trying to figure things out in regard to the law, and much longer than that in regard to the Bible. But it's starting to come together for me, and I'm hoping I really don't know what direction this will take. I really don't know how many videos will be put out. I just felt that it was very necessary that I didn't let the enemy win tonight, and I got back up here and tried to make some kind of a video. As you can see, I'm not real well prepared for this tonight. I don't have any kind of a script. I won't ever be working with scripts per se. I might work with an outline as far as the laws and that I would be talking about and different concepts that I would introduce. I don't know. I really don't know. But I do know that I can't just sit here and keep my mouth shut with the things that Yah has blessed me with, the knowledge that Yah has blessed me with. I've been so impressed by Justin and Adam, and I really have to thank them from the bottom of my heart for their honesty and their humility. See, I've never been in the service, but I was raised by two Marines. My father was a former Marine, and my stepfather was a former Marine. And I understand that mindset. I understand what you go through to become a Marine. And for those men to have that amount of humility, to be that soft-spoken after the things that I know that they've went through, that's just a open display of Yah's miracle working capabilities. To those men, just by knowing their pasts and knowing what I know about the Marine Corps, I know that the changes in them are miraculous. I can see it. And I can see the changes in me, and not in the same way, of course, because I've not been in the service, but I've seen I guess you'd say the humility that Yah's put in my heart, that I'm not at all the same person I used to be when I was, on top of the world building houses, general contracting. Oh, I think probably the most expensive house I ever general contracted that I was actually in charge of was around $1 million. And I was pretty arrogant back then, and I still can fall into that arrogance if I don't understand and keep mindful of I have nothing that wasn't given to me by my Father. You see, He either causes things to happen or allows things to happen. There's nothing in this world that happens by accident. Any accomplishments and achievements that I may have had in my life are purely a blessing from Him, because not everybody's given abilities to do things. Not everybody's given the environment to grow up in to learn to do things or to be socialized in this direction or that direction to where their life takes a particular path. And the path that my life has taken has been hard. It's been heartbreaking, and I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it at all. But in retrospect, I wouldn't trade it because of the valuable lessons I've taken from it. You see, if you haven't been through the things that I've been through, if you haven't spent 28 days curled up underneath a bunk in a jail cell just praying that Yah will let the pressure off for 15 minutes because it hurts, the mental anguish is so bad that you just want to open a vein and get it all over with. If you haven't been through those kind of things, you just can't understand. It's just impossible to understand what that's like. I can relate to certain people that perhaps some of you can't. You can relate to people that I can't. The drug and alcohol abuse in my past allows me to relate to people, a certain group of people in a certain way. This past year when I was in Wisconsin, or on the Wisconsin border, there's a no man's land right there. There's a creek running east to west, and if you're familiar with the map, you'll notice that the top of Illinois is a straight line east to west. Well, this creek is the dividing line for Wisconsin, Illinois. Actually, on the north side of the creek, about 10 feet is where Wisconsin starts. And in that area, it's kind of a no man's land because the police are unsure of the jurisdiction, and consequently, there's a lot of homeless people that congregate and live up there. The creek bed area, is wooded, and there's a buffer zone to the factories on both sides and the residential areas on both sides, and it's conducive for an environment for homeless people to be able to kind of hide out and stay out of trouble, and consequently a lot of them do. I got to know quite a few of them, and I became close to a couple of them, one of whom died. His liver gave out from alcoholism, and the time that I spent associating myself with those people gave me a new perspective on that, and gave me a new perspective on the blessings that I have in my life. Mahatma Gandhi said that if a person has 2 sets of clothes, they're causing somebody else to go naked. And I understand that now, after seeing the way these people had to live up there. And in all honesty, there were a larger percentage of them were there by choice because they wanted to drink and have no responsibilities and would rather live on the street and be victims. But there were people up there that didn't have a choice. It were just circumstances in life had put them there. And my heart really went out to them, a couple of them in particular. And it was quite an experience. But I've been blessed in my life that Yah has allowed me to experience a lot of things. So I'm hoping that Yah will bless me with the opportunity to get to know my brothers and sisters that are a part of Parable of the Vineyard and Christian Truthers, and I'll get to know a lot more of you and get to talk to you one-on-one, and we can be friends and family. I really need that, and I think we need each other at this time. I think we need to strengthen each other and to lift each other up. In Ecclesiastes, it talks about a rope of 3 cords is not easily broken, something to that effect. And that's what we got to kind of do. We got to kind of wrap our lives together so we strengthen each other, and hopefully we'll be strong enough to get on through everything that's coming upon this world. I see it accelerating at an exponential rate, and I just felt that it was really necessary that I made a positive move and got this started. I need for anybody that is interested to like and subscribe. I have no views at this point. I have no subscribers. Well, I'll have one tomorrow when Sherry gets up. Actually, it won't be too long now. It's after 6 in the morning. This has been an all-night affair. I haven't been to sleep yet tonight. But I need some subscribers, and I hope you'll come back and we can talk, and I hope that I will have had time I will put my effort into making the time to having some kind of a plan. Tonight, I've got to admit, I'm flying by the seat of my pants because I just had to put that one foot in front of the other and get the journey started. There's an old Chinese proverb, I don't know if I've said this, I said it in the previous video that I lost, but this proverb says that a journey of 10,000 miles begins with but a single step. And this does seem like a large and daunting task for me because Sherry does all that she can do, and I'm not going to be able to depend on her for a lot of help. Of course, she'll help me where she can, but I'm pretty much on my own here to do this. And I really have my heart set on doing this and trying to make something come of this. I know YouTube's dying. I'll probably have to learn another platform. I know I'm going to have to learn some stuff about editing, at least some basics, and it doesn't seem like there's enough time to do that right now. But if it's the will of Yah, He'll allow this to happen. If it's not His will, it wouldn't matter if I had Steven Spielberg behind me. I couldn't get a video on the air. It's Father either allows things to happen or causes them to happen. And nothing in this world is by chance. I've finally come to understand that. And therefore, I am incapable of taking any responsibility for the good things that have happened. The good things that have happened are blessings that come straight down from my Father who's in heaven. The bad things that happened are the consequences that come from my misbehavior. It's really quite simple in retrospect. Wish I could have seen this 30, 40 years ago, but it is what it is. Anyway, thank you all, and thank all of you who take the time to listen to this video, and I pray that you'll come back and check out my channel. Any suggestions you can give me would be greatly appreciated. Any direction that you can give me and what you might need to know legally. There are some things, I do have some specialties that I can help you with. I can at least point you in the right direction. Now, I can't practice law, but what I can do is I can tell you in a given situation what I would do. And with what happened Friday, oh my goodness, I took Sherry with me. I went to court Friday, and it was a follow-up. About a month earlier, the prosecutor tricked me. I was just going to try to settle this and just get it to go away. And the prosecutor tricked me into doing a negotiation and not filing a document that the judge had ordered me to file. Well, I've been going to court since February 9th of 2019 and have not entered a plea yet, and have not allowed the judge to enter a plea for me. And I ran off the nice judge, and now I've got one of the worst judges that they have. He's a hang 'em high type guy, and he's given me a lot of heartache. Well, I'm going to be soul searching between now and probably Monday evening, Tuesday morning, because there's a document I might have to file that's going to paint a really big red target on my back. It might paint enough of a target that I need to leave Illinois and fight this from Wisconsin to get this thing finished from Wisconsin. And the funny thing is, it's only a misdemeanor charge. But there's so much animosity towards me because I haven't been taking their garbage for quite a while. The things that they've done to my life that have been purely malicious and purely because they needed a conviction on something that have me so upset that I fight them. I don't roll over for them, and I don't believe that Romans 13 is telling us we got to bow down to the satanic system. I don't believe that's at all what that's talking about. I think somewhere along the way, and I've got a little evidence to this fact, and a couple other people believe the same way, that somewhere along the way there's been a few modifications made to Romans 13, to the writing of Paul there. So, don't know for sure, but common sense kind of dictates that my Heavenly Father doesn't want me to follow the ways of his adversary, his main adversary. So, consequently, I haven't bent over and bowed down to them, and I'm not going to. I told the prosecutor about a month ago I had an argument with two of them that ended up being a 2-hour meeting, and it was so stressful. I came out on top, but it was so stressful that I came home and had to take a 2-hour nap. I was just completely wiped out. Well, this thing Friday scared Sherry half to death because it started out with the judge all over me, jumping down my throat. Then he asked me to talk to the prosecutor, and I went out in the hallway. Then I jumped on the prosecutor. We had a long meeting, and I told him, I'm not going to roll over for you. This is going to be a bloodbath. Got to give him a little bit of my strategy, but didn't give away my strategy. He went back in and talked to the judge. Then I went back in, talked to the judge, who changed his tune, and he was sweet as could be. And I made one mistake right at the end that might have caused me a big problem. I'm not really going to go into that right now because I've got to make a decision as to how I want to proceed on this and what's the most prudent way to proceed on this. And it's got to be a prayerful decision searching my heart and asking for the guidance to make the right decision. But I may have to put in a document, and in order to cancel out the harm that I did. See, they speak a different language. Sounds like English, but it's called legalese. And he asked me right at the end if it was my wish to have the trial at such and such a time. And I'd been challenging jurisdiction and refusing to enter a plea and telling him I was not ready for a trial. It was a violation of due process. And he seemed to be going along with me, that he said, well, is it your wish? And I said, well, yeah, I guess that would be my wish. And then it occurred to me that wish is a term of art. It is basically the language that the king uses. It's the king's wish that this happens or that happens. So what I did was give consent. Now I have to defeat that consent, or else there's going to be a trial that I have no chance of winning. And I would have to take a plea bargain that I shouldn't take, because even taking a plea bargain is a contract with the devil. And it's become a real quandary for me. So y'all please pray for me. Pray for Sherry. She's doing a little bit better right now, but she's had some rough times in recent history, and I pray that you keep us in your prayers, and we do keep you all in our prayers, and may Yah bless each and every one of you, and we love you, and thank you so much for listening to this. And I guess I'm out of here. Hope to talk to you soon.